is skewed by a few high earners. So I plan to address this inequity. I will work to adjust the calculation to exclude the top and bottom 10% of earners from average income. This will result in a more accurate representation of average earnings and a result in a more fair distribution of state funds. I will support the initiative to have the state fund all of special education costs. This will not only reduce the local tax burden, but provide more consistent and equitable support for those most in need. We should recognize the changing nature of our economy, and we should end the telecommuter tax. Our seniors face unprecedented challenges living longer and are facing ever-increasing costs. We need to implement an equitable, understandable tax credit system similar to other states that hold the line on property taxes for these long-term residents. To encourage investment and job creation, I propose we expand existing programs that provide tax credits to companies that create new jobs, redirect resources to small companies that, and ensure that there are metrics in place to confirm that the benefits of the investment are paid for by the resulting economic growth. I would end the double taxation on leasehold improvements and give local authorities more flexibility to reduce taxes on corporate personal property as well as real property. I will support full funding of the transportation initiative to widen I-84 without tolls, as well as support improvements to rail and bus transportation in the Danbury metro area. I look forward to discussing these and other issues. Thank you.
Mr. Harding, 5 minutes.
First off, thank you everyone for attending this evening. It's an absolute honor to be standing here speaking with you and sharing some of these ideas. It's also great that you guys are able to listen to the democratic process, listen to our ideas, and go into the voting booth as an informed voter. So thank you for attending. Scott, thank you very much for moderating this evening. Thank you to the Chamber as well, to Susan and to Rebecca Lally for putting this great event together. And I know I'm missing some names, but thanks to all of you as well. Also, thank you to Mr. Scribner. I echo Howard's sentiment in thanking him for his service to this town over these 17 years. He's certainly given us a lot of effort and a lot of work. He's advocated strongly for us in Hartford, and I certainly wish to continue his legacy there. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Steve Harding. I grew up here in Brookfield. I went through the schools, K through 12. I was even at Country Kids in Prince of Peace, so I've been here for a very long time. I went to Brookfield High. I graduated from Brookfield High in 2005. I was a proud member of the football team that went to the state championship and went to the SWC title. Unfortunately, we weren't able to win either one, but I was there for both, and I was a proud member of it. I went to Albertus Magnus College. I graduated from there in 2009. I graduated summa cum laude. I was a 4-year varsity baseball player, captain my senior year. And then from there, I went on to law school at New York Law. I received my JD in 2012, and I was admitted to the Connecticut Bar that same year. Currently, I'm an attorney. I work as associate attorney at a local law office in Danbury. I do probate litigation as well as some criminal defense, and also corporate litigation as well. Why am I running? That seems to be the question I've received from so many people throughout this district. Mostly from my girlfriend, but the reason why I'm in all seriousness, the reason why I'm running is because this district has given so much to me. This area has given so much to me, and I want to give back to this district at a time when we need it the most. Right now, I see my friends. My friends are trying to find work. They're graduating college. They're graduating graduate school. They can't find work here in the state. We're last in job growth. And what's even worse, what's even more troubling, is I see my friends' parents. And they're leaving the state as well, because it's unaffordable. They can't live here in their retirement years. We need to have an advocate in Hartford that stands for the senior citizens, stands for the aging and the retirees here in the state, to make sure it's affordable for them. We also need an advocate for the young individuals, graduating college, graduating graduate school, so that they have jobs when they come into the working force. I want to be that advocate for you, and that's exactly why I'm running. A couple of things that I want to do in Hartford. The first thing, job growth. I think that's on everybody's mind, and Howard had said it in his speech, and I'm certainly echoing that same exact sentiment. I think we need to do that by certain innovative ideas, creating economic incentive zones, creating economic incentives for certain individuals that are graduating college and graduate school and vocational school to have apprenticeships and internships at different corporations here throughout the state. I think the second thing that we can do is simply lower the tax burden upon our corporations and eliminate the business entity tax. The third thing is start deregulating our businesses. Our small business owners are barely making ends meet right now as it is. We need to have an advocate in Hartford to make sure that they can make ends meet without further regulation. The second thing that I think is very important is making the state affordable. Like we just mentioned, I think that can be done in a couple ways. One is lowering the tax bracket, income tax bracket. And the second thing is eliminating the Social Security benefit tax. What many people don't know is that Connecticut is one of the few states in the country that still tax Social Security benefits. The last thing I want to do is increase funding to this particular area. It's so important that we have funding for our schools, for our infrastructure. It's so important we have funding for our beautiful lakes. So many of you have properties that border Lake Winona and Candlewood Lake. We need to find ways to preserve that. Representative Sturmer was a fantastic advocate for increased funding here in this district, and I want to be that same exact advocate for you. Thank you so much for coming here this evening. I look forward to discussing the ideas further with Howard and myself, and thanks again. It's an absolute honor to be here. Thank you.
First question. Danbury Hospital, which is the largest employer in the city as well as other hospitals in the state, according to reports, feel they've taken a financial hit over the recent years from the state funding. What, if anything, would you do to reverse that trend? Mr. Harding, 3 minutes.
Well, I think the first thing, and that brings up a great point. Recently, I don't know if many of you have heard, but there was a group called Tenet Health Group, and what they're trying to do is buy some of our hospitals that are struggling right now. What Governor Malloy and the Democratic legislature has done has basically come to Tenet Health Group and given them so many regulations that they walked away from the table. Tenet Health Group came back to the table, and Governor Malloy and the Democratic legislature gave them the same amount of regulations, and eventually Tenet Health Group just walked away. They said they're not going to do it anymore. What we did by doing that is take away services from the people within the state, and we also take away, we could have been able to save these hospitals, and we weren't able to do so by doing that. And Danbury Hospital is the same. Right now they're struggling. One thing that I would want to do in Hartford is to increase funding to our healthcare industry. Just like our infrastructure, our transportation infrastructure, just like preserving our lakes, it's important to make sure that we have a positive healthcare service here. How do we do that? First thing is growing our revenue base. And by growing our revenue base, we have to make more innovative policies to make sure that businesses come here to this state. And at the same time, we also have to make sure that we create policies that bring people to the state so we have a growing revenue base to increase our funding, and at which point we can take that increased funding and use it towards the healthcare system and other ideas as well. So I think by increasing funding, by growing our revenue base to increase our revenues and to distribute that revenue towards funding certain projects like Danbury Hospital, which is very vital to this particular area.
Mr. Lasser, 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, you know, I happened to be at the meeting. I was sitting in for Bill Davidson at the Housatonic Valley Council of Elected Officials about 5 or 6 years ago when Danbury Hospital CEO John Murphy made the proposal that they were going to acquire the New Milford Hospital as part of a cost savings and initiative by consolidating services. And I asked the question, well, how are you going to, what does it do to healthcare? And how are you making this work? And his answer was, oh, just by, administrative overhead will be saved. And, I asked about saving, services in New Milford, and he said that wouldn't have any impact. But we know how that's happened, and we know, how that has impacted New Milford and lost services in New Milford, as well as lost jobs. So we do have a challenge here in the area with regard to providing quality health care at affordable prices for people. And the whole idea of economic consolidation is not necessarily the way to go. As far as the funding from the state, there's the budget that the governor put out actually further reduces some of that funding. So it is going to be a challenge to figure out how best to increase that. Frankly, wherever you give, if you go through that budget, everybody pays. There's a loss, and everyone is contributing to the balancing of that budget. And I'm not really sure at this point where we're going to get some additional funding to focus on this particular area. But I do want to address what Steve said about Tenet, because I think he's misinformed or doesn't quite understand the process. The regulation, or the stipulations, we don't know why Tenet walked away. We do know that it's the Office of Healthcare Services had a interview with them, they testified, they said again, just like Danbury said, is we're not going to lay anybody off, we're not going to lose any services, and yet we're going to turn a $10 million operating loss into a profit. Well, I've been involved in acquisitions from both sides, being acquired and being the acquirer, and I know that you don't make $10 million operating loss disappear just by getting cheap tongue depressors. So the reality of the situation is, Tenet, I'm not sure was really that serious about their acquisition proposal in the first place. But on the other hand, I think that it was a mistake the way the Office of Healthcare Services identified various operating imperatives, and they should not have stipulated those kinds of things. It's appropriate for them to stipulate to the quantity and quality of care that's expected as a result, but not impair their operating decisions.
Mr. Harding, 1 minute.
I just feel that, it shouldn't be overlooked that Tenet is a very well-respected healthcare organization. I mean, what many people don't know is that Tenet Healthcare is a large supporter of Obamacare and President Obama. So it isn't like this organization that was going to come in and try to capitalize on a good opportunity. I think they were providing an adequate service for our state, and it would have been a positive thing for our state. And I really feel that the overregulation of the governor and the legislature played a huge role in what occurred.
Mr. Lasser, 1 minute.
Well, I don't disagree. I think we both agree that Tenet should be allowed to make the acquisition. I think the issue here is how we get them back to the table and what the issues really are. The issues are that the Office of Healthcare Services, not the governor, asked them to stipulate to what they agreed to in their testimony, that they wouldn't lay people off. Well, I think that's an unreasonable expectation. I think they should have said, as I said before, let's put metrics in place to the quality and the quantity of care that we expect you to deliver on this acquisition, and have metrics in place, and then give them, instead of sticks, use carrots. Give them additional tax incentives that would offset some of the capital investment that they're going to make. They're supposed to make a $50 million investment that's much needed in Waterbury, but if you put in place some future benefits that they could get if they reach the metrics in terms of reaching those quality and quantity of health care, that would entice them to follow up on their acquisition if they're truly serious.
Next question, what would you do to improve Connecticut's transportation network, and how would you pay for it? Mr. Lasser, 3 minutes.
Okay, well, right here in this area, I think the governor's already made a proposal for the widening of I-84. I think that that's much needed. I used to commute down to Stanford every day and have to deal with the traffic between exit 3 and exit 7. These days, when I go off to Danbury, if it's in the middle of the day, that interchange between when you're getting off of 7 onto 84 and that merge is always backed up late in the afternoon. And coming back from Danbury, if it's between 3 and 6. So I think the widening is very much needed. I think we need to electrify the rails from Danbury down